Welcome to Late Night Horror Stories and True Crime. Tonight we bring you 5 chilling tales of terror, each one inspired by real events, where being home alone turns from a comfort into a nightmare. From silent calls in the dead of night to unseen eyes watching from the shadows. These stories will remind you that sometimes the true horror isn't what's outside. It's already inside. Settle in, if you dare. Emily Hartman was not used to being still. At 32, she had spent her life moving, working as a high school teacher by day, running local marathons by weekend. But the surgery had sidelined her. A torn ligament repaired, a leg casted and braced. So when winter came howling through Denver, Emily found herself marooned in her 2-story house, alone. Friends visited when they could. Groceries arrived by delivery. Her dog, Max, kept her company, but he was old, half blind, and spent most of the day snoring on the couch. The nights were the worst. Without movement, without activity, the house itself seemed to breathe. Floorboards sighed, heaters ticked, and winds scraped against the siding like skeletal fingers. On the 6th night, after her surgery, Emily first heard it. A scratching, faint, hesitant, like nails dragging lightly across metal. Max lifted his head from the couch and growled lowly, his cloudy eyes staring at the heating vent across the room. Emily muted the TV. Listened. The sound stopped. She chuckled nervously. "Rats," she said aloud. "It's just rats." But in her gut a cold knot was forming. The scratching continued every night. Sometimes faint. Sometimes loud, enough that Emily could swear it was inside the walls. She called an exterminator. They inspected the house top to bottom. No droppings, no chew marks, no signs of infestation. The man scratched his head and left without charging her. "Maybe it's just the old ductwork expanding," he said. Emily tried to believe him, but the noises weren't mechanical. They were purposeful. They moved. One night, as she lay half asleep on the couch, she heard a tap, tap, tap come from the heating vent on the floor. Tap, tap, tap. Like someone or something was inside trying to get her attention. Emily sat up, heart pounding. Max barked sharply and limped over to the vent, sniffing. From behind the grill, she thought. For just a second, she saw a glint, an eye, reflecting light. She screamed and stumbled backward, slamming into the coffee table. When she looked again, the vent was empty. Emily called the police. A young officer named Brooks came by, walking the perimeter, checking every window and door. "No sign of forced entry," he said. "No footprints in the snow." He looked unconvinced when she described the eye in the vent. "You've been on pain meds, right? Maybe—" "I'm not hallucinating," she snapped. He left with a promise to drive by occasionally. Emily watched his cruiser vanish down the street, feeling more alone than ever. That night, Emily shoved a heavy armchair against her bedroom door. As she lay in bed, she kept the vent in the corner of the room within sight. Hours passed. Then clang, the sound of metal shifting. She turned her head sharply, peering into the darkness. The vent grill was loose, and something was sliding it aside. Emily fumbled for her phone, her hands trembling, and hit the flashlight. The beam of light caught it, a hand, thin, filthy, with long nails and mottled skin. It groped blindly, feeling around the floor beyond the vent. Emily gasped. The hand withdrew, fast. Max barked furiously, planting himself between her and the vent. She called 911. "There's someone in my vents," she cried. "Please, please hurry." The dispatcher tried to calm her, but Emily stayed on the line, weaponless, clutching her phone like a life raft. Minutes later, though it felt like hours, flashing lights lit up her windows. Officers flooded the house. They found nothing. No sign of anyone. The vents were checked. The basement was clear. The attic empty. But Emily knew what she had seen. They agreed to leave a patrol car outside for the night. She still didn't sleep. The next morning, Emily's neighbor, an old man named Mr. Hansen, shuffled over with a casserole. "Heard about the trouble," he said. "Thought you could use some real food." He glanced around her living room, his eyes settling on the vent. "You know," he said slowly, "your house used to belong to the Morgan family." Emily nodded. She'd heard the name. "Their son was off," Mr. Hansen said. "He'd hide in the walls when he got in trouble. Tiny kid, skinny as a rail. We thought he'd grown out of it." Emily swallowed. "What happened to him?" Mr. Hansen hesitated. "Disappeared, 15 years back. Some folks say he ran away. Others, not so sure." Emily's stomach turned. That night, Emily kept every light in the house blazing. The vents were sealed with duct tape and screws. Every window was locked. Still, at 2:17 a.m. she heard it. A scrape, coming from behind the bedroom wall. She sat up, her heart hammering. Then, the faintest whisper, "Emily!" The drywall bulged. Her scream tore the night apart as she grabbed her crutches and stumbled for the door. Behind her, the wall cracked, splintered, and something thin, pale and impossibly fast, wriggled free. Max lunged at it, barking ferociously. Emily threw herself down the stairs, landing hard, pain shooting up her braced leg. The front door was in sight. Behind her, she heard Max yelp. A terrible final sound. She didn't look back. She threw open the door and hurled herself onto the porch as the patrol car squealed to a stop. Officer Brooks leapt out, gun drawn. Emily sobbed and pointed, "In there!" In the walls. They never found him. The police ripped apart walls, floors, ceilings. They found crawl spaces, old ductwork, even a few scraps of bedding hidden deep in the house's skeleton. Signs that someone, something, had been living there for years. Emily never returned. She sold the house, moved across the country, but sometimes, in her new home when the wind is right, she swears she can hear it, a faint scratching, a whisper, and the soft sound of something crawling. Autumn settled heavily over the town of Red Hollow, Missouri. The air smelled of rain and smoke. The sun vanished early behind thick gray clouds. For 17-year-old Lila Monroe, it was supposed to be a quiet night. Her father worked the graveyard shift at the mill. Her mother had left for the weekend to help her sister move. Lila's only companion was their black cat, Jasper, who slept most of the day and prowled at night. She didn't mind being alone. The house was tucked at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by empty fields. No one bothered them out here. Lila microwaved a frozen pizza, queued up a horror movie marathon, and settled on the couch, wrapped in a quilt. The night crept on. Wind howled against the windows. Rain tapped steadily against the roof. And then, a knock. 3 soft raps at the back door. Lila froze. No one should have been out there. Heart hammering, she crept to the kitchen, switched on the floodlight. Nothing. The fields stretched empty under the storm clouds. Maybe the wind. She locked the door again, double-checking it twice. Then she saw it. A handprint, mud-smeared, 5 fingers wide, right there on the kitchen window. Lila's skin crawled. She wiped the handprint away with a dish towel, laughing nervously at herself. Probably neighborhood kids. Probably nothing. Still, she made sure every window and door was locked. She even slid the bolt across the front door, something she rarely bothered with. Jasper meowed, pacing the living room windows. Outside, the rain picked up. Trees swayed and groaned under the wind's assault. Lila turned the TV volume low, listening. For a while, nothing. Then another knock. This time on the living room window, sharp, deliberate. Lila gasped and whipped around. She couldn't see anything beyond the reflection of the room in the glass. But there, just at the bottom edge of the window, another handprint. She stumbled back, and in the brief flash of lightning she thought, she saw a figure crouched low outside, waiting, watching. Panic rising, Lila grabbed her phone. No missed calls, no alerts, one bar of service. She dialed her father's number, straight to voicemail. "Dad?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Someone's outside. I think someone's trying to get in." She hung up and dialed 911. The operator answered, calm and detached. "Emergency services, what's your emergency?" "Someone's outside my house," Lila said. "Knocking, leaving handprints. Stay on the line, officers are en route." The minutes crawled by. Lila crouched in the hallway, phone clutched to her ear. Jasper hissed suddenly, his back arched. Another knock, this time inside the house, from the basement door. Lila's blood ran cold. She had locked the basement door, hadn't she? Tears stung her eyes as she backed away. "Hello?" she called out, her voice small and shaking. No answer. Only the slow, creaking sound of the basement door swinging open. Lila bolted for the front door, fumbling with the lock. Outside, she saw headlights bouncing down the gravel road. The police. She threw open the door and fled into the storm, waving frantically. 2 officers, a man and a woman, rushed toward her. "Stay here," the woman said, guiding Lila behind the patrol car. "We'll check inside." Guns drawn, they entered the house. Minutes passed. Then, a shout. "We've got something!" The officers emerged, grim-faced. "We found muddy footprints in your basement," Officer Reese said, leading to a broken vent shaft. "Was someone there?" Lila whispered. "Whoever it was, they're gone now. Must have slipped out when we arrived." They showed her photos from their phones. The footprints weren't adult-sized. They were small, barefoot. "Squatter, maybe," Reese said. "Someone living under the house." Lila shook her head violently. "No, it wasn't a kid. It felt wrong." She told them about the handprints, the figure outside, the knocking from within. Officer Reese exchanged a glance with his partner. "We'll stay until your dad gets home," he said. Lila sat in the patrol car, shivering, Jasper trembling in her lap. From the house's dark windows, she thought, just for a moment, she saw movement. Something slipping through the shadows, watching, waiting. Lila never spent another night alone in that house. Her father had new locks installed, motion lights, even a security system. The police never caught whoever had been hiding there. Neighbors whispered about the hollow crawler, an old legend about something that lurked under Red Hollow's homes, sneaking through crawl spaces and vents. Sometimes, even years later, Lila would find herself waking at night to the sound of tapping, and on her window a single muddy handprint, appearing, and then disappearing. The sun dipped low in Loveland, Ohio. staining the sky, blood orange and purple. Kayla Munro lived alone in a modest ranch house tucked at the end of a sleepy cul-de-sac. 27, single and fiercely independent, she had made the little house her sanctuary, a place where she could unwind from the stresses of her job at the hospital. Tonight, rain was coming. Thick clouds rolled in as Kayla placed her grocery order through an app, choosing leave at door to avoid interaction. She spent the evening cleaning, lighting candles, letting soft music fill the rooms. Around 9:30, her phone buzzed. "Your delivery is arriving soon." 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Kayla peeked through the peephole. A man in a yellow raincoat stood on the porch, holding 2 large grocery bags. Odd. Most drivers just left the bags and left. They didn't ring the bell. They didn't wait. Kayla opened the door a crack, the chain lock still engaged. "Just leave them," she called through the gap. The man nodded silently, set the bags down, walked back to his beat-up white van, idling by the curb. Relieved, Kayla unhooked the chain and pulled the bags inside. She closed the door, locked it tight. It wasn't until she was unpacking that she noticed it. At the bottom of one bag, buried beneath apples and cans, was a small black object, a tiny blinking red light, a camera. Her stomach dropped. Kayla's heart pounded. She snatched the camera out of the bag, staring at it in disbelief. Who the hell puts a camera in someone's groceries? She ran to the window. The white van was still there, parked, headlights off, waiting. Kayla grabbed her phone and called 911. "There's a man outside my house," she said, voice shaking. "He delivered my groceries, but there was a hidden camera in the bag." "Stay on the line," the dispatcher said. "Officers are en route." Kayla crouched low, peeking through the blinds. The van's driver's side door opened. The man in the raincoat stepped out, holding something. A crowbar. Panic surged through her. She deadbolted the doors, shoved the couch against the entryway. The man circled the house slowly, tapping the crowbar against the siding as he went. Tap, tap, tap. Kayla ducked into the kitchen, searching for a weapon. Her hands found a heavy cast-iron skillet. Outside, the tapping stopped. Silence. Too much silence. She heard a soft scrape at the back door. The knob jiggled. A shadow loomed behind the frosted glass. Kayla held her breath. Suddenly, a crash. The glass shattered inward as the crowbar punched through. The man reached in, fumbling for the lock. Kayla screamed and swung the skillet with all her strength. It connected with a sickening thud. The man howled, yanking his bleeding hand back. She bolted for the front door, ripping away the couch blockade. Fumbled with the locks, hands slick with sweat. Behind her, the back door creaked open. She threw open the front door just as the man lunged into the house. She sprinted barefoot into the storm, the cold rain instantly soaking her. Neighbors' houses were dark, silent. She ran for the street, waving frantically as 2 headlights rounded the corner. A police cruiser. The man froze on the porch, the crowbar in his hand dripping rainwater and blood. The cruiser screeched to a halt. 2 officers sprang out, guns drawn. "Drop it!" The man hesitated, then bolted back toward his van. He didn't make it. A tackle, a scuffle. Then cuffs. Kayla collapsed to her knees on the wet pavement, sobbing in relief. Later, as the officers pieced the story together, Kayla learned the man wasn't a real delivery driver. He had stolen a uniform, stolen a van. And she wasn't the first woman he'd targeted. Police found zip ties, duct tape, and a hunting knife in the van. "You were lucky," one officer told her grimly. "You fought back." Kayla moved a month later, unable to shake the feeling of eyes on her. She stopped ordering deliveries, stopped answering the door to strangers. Sometimes in the middle of the night, she would wake in a cold sweat, hearing the soft tap, tap, tap of something at her door, waiting to be let in. The cold rain of an early March evening clattered against the windows of Alex Carter's apartment. Alex was 28, a bartender by trade and newly single. His girlfriend had moved out 3 weeks ago, taking the cat and leaving him with too much space and too many empty nights. Tonight, Alex worked late, mopping floors and cashing out the register after a double shift. By the time he drove home, it was nearly 2 in the morning. The apartment complex was quiet. Only the buzz of the security light and the low hiss of the rain kept him company as he climbed the stairs. Inside, the air felt stale, too still. Alex tossed his keys on the counter, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and collapsed onto the couch, kicking off his shoes. He clicked on the TV, letting the background noise fill the silence. For a while he drifted, then somewhere between waking and sleep he heard it. A creak, software, subtle, from the bedroom. Alex sat up, heart thudding. Maybe the building settling, maybe nothing. Still, he turned down the TV and listened. Another creak, longer this time, like weight shifting on floorboards. He stood up, moving slowly toward the hallway. "Hello?" he called out, his voice breaking the stillness. Nothing. He checked the front door, locked, the windows, locked. He grabbed a heavy Maglite flashlight from the counter and made his way to the bedroom. The door was open a crack, just as he'd left it. He pushed it open with the flashlight. Empty. Everything looked normal. The unmade bed, the cluttered nightstand, the laundry spilling from the hamper. Still uneasy, he checked the closet. Nothing. He checked under the bed. Just shadows. Feeling foolish, Alex exhaled a shaky laugh and backed away. He climbed into bed without undressing, the Maglite still in his hand. The rain drummed harder against the windows. Sleep tugged at him, and he gave in. Somewhere in the blackness of the early morning hours, he woke. Not to a noise, but to a feeling, a weight. A slow, steady shifting under the mattress. Alex held his breath. Then he heard it, breathing directly beneath him. Panic froze him in place. He strained his ears. The breathing was ragged, wet, as if whoever, whatever was beneath him was sick. Carefully, he moved his hand to the edge of the bed, shined the Maglite down. Nothing visible. But the breathing continued. Software. Persistent. He swung his legs off the bed, planting them on the floor, and froze. A hand brushed his ankle. Cold. Clammy. Alex yelped and scrambled backward onto the mattress. The bed frame creaked violently as someone, shifted underneath. He didn't think. He ran. He tore out of the bedroom, sprinted down the hall and lunged for the front door. He didn't have time to search for his keys. He yanked the door open without them. Rain lashed his face as he stumbled barefoot down the stairs into the parking lot. Behind him he heard it, a low, guttural growl. Alex banged on his neighbor's door, adrenaline numbing the cold. Lights flicked on. A middle-aged man in a robe opened up, taking one look at Alex's wild eyes and ushering him inside. The police arrived minutes later. Alex recounted everything, trembling. 3 officers entered his apartment, guns drawn. 10 minutes passed. One of them came back out, grim-faced. "You need to see this," he said. In the bedroom, the officers had flipped the bed frame. Underneath, where Alex had slept unaware, was a man. Naked, filthy, his skin gray with grime. He stared up at them, smiling a crooked, broken-toothed grin. In one hand, he clutched a kitchen knife, in the other, a length of rope. He had been waiting for Alex to fall into a deeper sleep, waiting for the perfect moment. The police dragged him out, handcuffed and cackling, muttering nonsense about new skin and perfect fits. They later discovered that the man had been living in abandoned crawl spaces around the complex, slipping into apartments through vents, basements, and unlocked windows. Alex moved out within the week. He never lived alone again. And for years afterward, before he went to sleep, each night, he would check under the bed. Twice. Sometimes 3 times. Because once you felt a hand reach out from the darkness, you never, ever forget. The town of Oak Ridge had already fallen asleep when Megan Tate pulled into her driveway. It was after midnight, and the rain had just started. Fat, cold drops spattered her windshield as she cut the engine. The house stood dark and still against the night, just the way she left it. Living alone had never bothered Megan. She was 34, a nurse, toughened by years of late shifts and long drives home in the dark. But tonight felt different. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her from beyond the tree line that bordered her small backyard. Shaking it off, Megan hurried inside, bolted the door, and tossed her keys on the counter. The house creaked and moaned under the push of the wind, but it was familiar, comforting. She made a cup of tea, flipped through a book, and let the late hour pull her towards sleep. The first call came at 12:47 a.m. Megan jolted awake on the couch, her tea cold beside her. The phone vibrated on the coffee table, the screen glowing an unfamiliar number. She answered groggily. Hello? Static. A long, crackling burst of static, then a whisper. I'm outside. Megan sat bolt upright, heart hammering. Who is this? The line went dead. She locked every door and window again, even though she already had earlier. Probably a prank, she told herself. Some creep with a random dialer. She turned on the porch light, peered out into the night. Nothing but the rain, tapping against the concrete. Still uneasy, Megan turned off the ringer on her phone and went upstairs to bed, locking her bedroom door behind her. Sleep was a long time coming. The second call came at 2:13 a.m. The phone, set to vibrate, buzzed itself right off the nightstand and onto the floor. Megan sat up, staring at the screen. Same number. She hesitated, then answered. Who are you? Again. Static. This time no whisper, just breathing. Long, slow, deliberate. She hung up, heart racing. She called the police, voice trembling. Someone keeps calling me, she said, whispering, breathing, saying they're outside. The dispatcher was calm. Stay inside. Stay on the line. Officers are en route. Minutes passed like hours. Megan stayed by the window, clutching the heavy flashlight she kept by the bed. The cruiser pulled into her driveway, red and blue lights flashing against the wet blacktop. 2 officers approached the door, hands on their holsters. Megan let them in, explaining the calls. Officer Delaney, the older of the 2, asked to see her phone. She handed it over, her fingers shaking. He frowned. These calls are coming from a landline, he said. So, Megan whispered, you don't have a landline listed, Mom. Only a mobile number. He paused, his face going pale. The calls were coming from inside the house. Megan's knees buckled. She grabbed the arm of the couch to stay upright. The younger officer, Ramirez, swept through the house, checking every room, every closet. The basement door was locked from the inside. Ramirez kicked it open. The basement was dark, damp, unfinished. In the corner under the stairs they found it, an old landline phone, plugged into a jack Megan didn't even know existed. The cord was frayed. The plastic casing cracked. But it was working. Recently used. Officer Delaney followed the dusty footprints leading from the basement door to the pile of boxes stacked under the stairs. Behind them, hunched and shaking, they found a man. Thin, soaking wet, grinning through cracked, broken teeth. He didn't fight. He just stared at Megan as they cuffed him, stared and smiled. He had been there for hours, waiting, watching, calling. The man was a drifter, a repeat offender with a record of home invasions and worse. He had slipped in sometime during the evening through the storm cellar doors Megan rarely used. The police found a knife tucked in his waistband. "You're lucky," Officer Delaney told her as they led the man away. Another hour or two. He didn't finish the sentence. Megan never spent another night alone in that house. She moved across town, into a building with secure entry and cameras in every hallway. But sometimes, especially when the rain taps against the windows, she still wakes up at night, reaches for her phone, sees an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen, and wonders. If she answers, will she hear static, breathing, or a voice whispering, "I'm outside"? Thank you for joining us this evening. If tonight's stories made you think twice about locking your doors or checking under your bed, then we've done our job. If you enjoy these late-night chills, kindly hit the like button and subscribe for more horror stories and true crime tales. We'll be waiting for you. Same time, same darkness. Next time on Late Night Horror Stories and True Crime. Until then, stay safe and stay awake.